Hello, I'm Nancy Bocskor. I am the past director of the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy at Texas Women's University, but I've been part of Campaign Bootcamp for more than 20 years. So welcome, as we all are using the word pivot these days, to our online lectures. Today, I'm going to talk to you about everyone's least favorite topic, and that is fundraising. I've never met anyone yet when given the option, go to the dentist, have all of your teeth pulled and some root canals without anesthesia, or cold call someone and ask for $2,800, which is the maximum you can ask for in a federal race. And trust me, everybody just says, send me to the dentist. But today, I want to teach you how to ask for money even if you hate to. Here's what we're going to do today. First, we're going to talk about some of the fundamentals of fundraising. We're going to talk about really focusing on several techniques today, but I will do an overview of all the different ways to raise money. And finally, we're going to wrap up with I'm going to teach you how to ask. Because really, the worst somebody can tell you is no. They're not going to send you to a gulag in Siberia. So let's get started. You'll find in your materials my companion book called Go Fish, How to Catch and Keep Contributors. I am in the middle of updating that book, but the only thing that's really out of date is the information about Federal Election Commission rules, and we'll discuss that. But fishing and fundraising are a lot alike. If I wanted to catch a really big fish, I'd have to go to Florida, I'd have to rent a boat, I'd have to hire the skipper in Gilligan, we'd have to have special bait, special equipment, and we could catch some really big fish. Just like when we're doing fundraising, you have to have special techniques. But no less important in fishing or fundraising is casting a wide net to scoop up those small and medium fish and donors. Because my job as a fundraiser is to give every individual an opportunity to invest in my campaign. So there are two things that are important in politics. The first is money, and I just can't remember what the second one is. Now, this saying didn't come about after Citizens United or any other recent Supreme Court case. No, it was coined by Senator Mark Hanna from my home state of Ohio, who was William McKinley's campaign advisor in his 1896 campaign. There's always been money in politics. In my graduate level fundraising class, my students have to read the history of campaign finance. And it's a fascinating look at how we got to where we are today, because despite what you hear in the media, money in fundraising is heavily regulated. You know, I tell people I do not want to go and have to wear like an orange jumpsuit in prison because I am not following election law. So always know the law, and we'll talk more about that later. And there's a section on election law in your companion book. So there's always been money in politics. You can't save the world if you can't pay the rent. You know, we want to have great things. We want to change the world. We want to change our community. But you can't do those things if you're unable to raise money. And whether you are raising money for a nonprofit, a political campaign, or other organization, you have to have a strategy, and it can be learned. Because remember, in America, we pretty much come out of the womb as many fundraisers. Yes, we have a fundraising culture in the US that does not exist in other places. On this particular photo, you see Father Santa along with a lot of kids. And many years ago, I was sent to Moldova. It's a country, Google it. And I was sent there to help teach fundraising culture in a country that really had none. And following the techniques that we're going to go through today, after 3 days of intense training, the man that is next to Father Christmas, you can see his floating head, he wore a black turtleneck, Dimitri reported back to me, because all he wanted to do was to raise money to buy new sporting equipment for one impoverished school on the Moldovan-Ukrainian border. The schools there, you know, they don't have books, there's no heating, there's no indoor plumbing, but he wanted to bring a moment of joy to Europe's poorest country. And a few months later, he sent me this photo and he said, you know what, Nancy, using your techniques, we raised enough money to buy new sporting equipment for 2 schools and 2 kindergartens. And he has really done such a great job over the last few years. I had dinner with him in Moldova again about a year and a half ago. But you need to learn these things. And again, as Americans, we pretty much live the virtues of the importance of giving back. So even in Moldova, can help make the world a better place if you learn how to raise money. There isn't a money tree. You have to plant the seeds yourself. Everything about fundraising is just creating 1 degree of separation, 6. I like to tell people God invented Google so I can find out anything about anyone in the world. And then, of course, Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook so I could even learn more. Information is power. The more I know about a potential donor and what that donor is interested in, the more money I'm going to be able to raise, because everyone has this passion that they care about. Now, I can't tell you the number of people who have tried to call me October 1st of the election year and say, Nancy, I can't raise any money back at home, but boy, I'd be great in Congress. Because, so I ask questions. Where do you live? Well, I live in my parents' basement. Okay. Yeah. But I read a lot, and I especially love Ayn Rand, and I'm a libertarian. Okay. Well, are you in any organizations like the JCs or Lions? Nope, I don't like people. Do you go to church? No, I don't go to church. Are you a veteran? No, I just really hang out in the basement and read stuff. I'm really smart. Well, guess what? There isn't a money tree. You have to leave your basement, you have to leave your house, and you have to network. Now, I will tell you, this money tree is in Reno, Nevada, and I stopped the car to take a photo of it. This is at a quick check cashing place next to a casino. So first piece of advice, do not get a car title loan to run for office. So don't go to the money tree anywhere near a casino. So as I said, you have to grow and plant your own seeds. The good news, your volunteers are already fundraisers. You just forgot. Whether you at age 3, you were going to church, and in the South, I know you go to church twice a week, and there's always passing the collection plate. Now, even as a child, I was competitive, so I would put in a quarter if somebody else put in a dime, right? But we have, from the time we're children, we have this giving back. Even if you don't go to church in America on a regular basis, about half of Americans do, it is so much in our culture, whether it is selling Girl Scout cookies, Sally Foster wrapping paper. Oh my gosh, when I was moving to Texas a couple of years ago, I was trying to downsize and I had more than 200 rolls of wrapping paper. And I went, oh my gosh, every one of my friends' kids has sold me wrapping paper. These days, you're lucky if you get a gift in a brown paper bag, right? I haven't used wrapping paper in years. So I, of course, donated it to a charity that wraps paper, wraps gifts at Christmas and raises money. But boy, did I buy a lot of wrapping paper. So you're already a fundraiser. You just forgot. Our word of the year is pivot. Women in particular are great fundraisers for charitable organizations, but they feel very reluctant in asking for themselves. You got to get over it. People need to invest in you. As I said, what's fundraising? It's persuading other people. It's making connections. Sometimes it's arguing and debating. It's knowing how to write a case of support. It's helping others. It's influencing. It's convincing. But at the end of the day, it's sales 101. You have to have the product and market it. And you are the product or your candidate. How are you going to persuade other people to contribute and invest in this cause? Persistence is the answer, and a sense of humor helps too. I'm nothing if not pleasantly persistent, right? I have no problems asking people for things. Perhaps I should have more boundaries. But if I want to know something, you've got to work on it. I stumbled into fundraising decades ago when my old boss some guy named Newt Gingrich, called me one day and said, you know, Nancy, you'll ask anybody anything. You throw really great parties and you are so pleasantly persistent. I said, yes, just because somebody tells me no today doesn't mean it means no tomorrow, unless somebody says, go away. It could be the wrong person asked that person for money. Maybe a car dealer needs to ask a car dealer. You've got to look at the relationship. So be pleasant, but you have to keep your sense of humor. When people tell you no, it's not that they're attacking you. It's because they haven't bought off on the concept yet. They may need more information. So never shut a door. As I was developing my presentation to go to Moldova several years ago, I was thinking about what makes us unique. What is the fundraising foundation we have in America? And I came up with the 3 T's. First, trust. Your personal trust asset is the greatest commodity, is the greatest thing you have as a human being. As we say, trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. People need to trust. When you say, man, I need $1,000 today so I can buy 3 radio spots, and then you listen to the radio spots, right? Here's what can be on the radio. People have to trust you to use their money, especially in these times when a lot of people are losing jobs. But I will tell you, especially in nonprofit world, fundraising is skyrocketing. People are looking out for other people. You have to make the case in politics too. If you don't like what's happening, you have to invest, but you have to make sure that you have that trust asset. In many places where I work, no one trusts anyone. You know, in Russia, you didn't even trust your own neighbor because your own neighbor could turn you into the KGB, right? There's always something for a better apartment, for a better job. We have not lost trust in the United States. So please develop that personal trust asset. Be a person that says, I'm going to bake 3 dozen chocolate chip cookies for you, and I'll have them by Sunday for the bake sale. Be the person who gets it done. Because not only in fundraising, that's going to help you as a leader. You have to be transparent. Learn to love a spreadsheet. My gosh, so many people, I'll never forget somebody, I was in the Republic of Georgia and I was talking about finance committees, which are boards of directors in many instances, where you help your friends raise money for your cause or campaign. And I had a student look at me and go, but Nancy, how do you not know your friend will not keep the money? And I remember my head exploded. But be transparent. Tell people how you're going to spend the money. You don't have to give away your entire campaign strategy, but be transparent. That's why we have the Federal Election Commission, which is the governs federal races, and you'll find those numbers in the material I've given you. The state of Texas, every state has different campaign finance laws. Know the law. Do not hire Uncle Billy Bob's cousin who's a bookkeeper in his spare time to do your campaign finance. You need somebody who's a great bookkeeper. And even with all my experience, I have attorneys who specialize in campaign finance law that I call in case I have a question, because you do not want to be the cause of a page 1 story. One of the first questions when I would go work for candidates is there money you're not going to take? I had a client in Sacramento, and a Republican hadn't represented that district in decades. Now, he decided he didn't want to take money from the National Rifle Association or Big Tobacco. Now, did he support guns? Second Amendment? Absolutely. Did he support people using tobacco? Absolutely. But he did not want a contribution from these entities to cloud his campaign. So I always say, is there money you don't want to take? I've worked for enough Southern Baptists and Mormons in my career where we do not take gambling, alcohol, or tobacco money at all. Know the parameters. You do not want to have a contribution that ends up being on page 1 of the paper when it comes from a source you don't want money from. So you have to have trust. You have to be transparent. And the third part is going back to this history of tithing. We always give back. In Great Britain, only 7% of Brits go to church on a regular basis now. And nonprofit fundraising plummeted. There's such a direct correlation between church or believing in something and giving back. So people are used to giving. And we know that studies show the richest people give a smaller percentage of their income to nonprofit world than our lower income folks. Lower income folks give a higher percentage. So please don't ever think, I would sometimes have students who had the strategy, I'm going to go knock on the doors of all the big mansions in the rich part of town and ask them for money. And I go, yeah, that's not a strategy. Just because somebody may not have a lot of money doesn't mean that you can't make the decision how they're going to give it. I'm an animal rescue person. When I saw my tax return last year on how much I gave to animal organizations, I was pretty stunned. But that is a passion of mine, and I will always dig deeper in my pocket to help out, Apollo Rescue in Justin, Texas, a rural Texas rescue. So you have to talk to people and find out what they're passionate about. But people in general, and especially Americans, have a history of tithing that does not exist around the world. So think of those 3 T's. Participation is a representation of a relationship. It's all about relationships, creating that 1 degree of separation. In a political campaign, you can go back to people who have run for office before or people who have volunteered on campaigns. In small communities, everybody knows everybody. Talk to them. Zoom call them. Right now, one reason fundraising is working better than usual, people are home and they actually want human contact. So, and you don't have to go through a gatekeeper. You can actually call someone and get a hold of them. But you've got to figure out what is that 1 degree. A relationship, if you go see a restaurant owner, the restaurant owner cares about, well, when my restaurant back up, but they care about minimum wage. They don't care about your stand on abortion. So make sure you know what that person's area of interest is. Think long-term, not one-off. Fundraising is harmony, not Tinder, right? We are building a relationship. This isn't a one-night stand. So keep that in mind. Just because, you're not going to always ask somebody for money at every communication. You start newsletters, you have emails, you are gracious, you thank people. So develop a long-term relationship. Do not look at this as, yeah, you gave me money and I'm not going to talk to you again. What's your first step? When I work with a candidate or a nonprofit, I go in and I wish I had some fancy term to use, but I have something that I call, let's do a data dumping, which is taking a look at list. Who do you know? And I sit down and I take notes. I ask, are you a veteran? Are you a member of the American Legion or the VFW? Great, that's a list. What's your occupation? I've never met an insurance agent who didn't know almost every independent insurance agent in the world. It's another list. There are more than 30,000 organizations in the United States. Even the vending machine has a PAC, right? If you are the Vending Machine Association, you have a national PAC. So be thinking and ask those questions. Where do you go to church? Where did you go to college? My gosh, nothing like those Texas Aggies, right? I can spot that Aggie ring across an airport, and we'll talk more about that later. Where did you go to high school? Are you in a service organization like Lions Club, JCs, etc.? Are you in a fraternal organization, such as the Moose, the Elks? We take a look at, are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce? Are you a member of a labor union? And then I have people still get out that Christmas card list, because you never know what that relationship is. But I sit down and, we've said this in campaigns for a long time. If you don't know 100 people that you can ask for money, maybe you need to rethink whether you're running or not. Because these are people who are investors, and you need to be able to have people you can call who will donate. So collect as many lists as you can. I've never met a list in my life that didn't bring me one or more of three things: a vote, a volunteer, or a donation. So I'm always thinking of building that foundation of that organization. Remember, people are twice as likely to do something for you if they're asked by a friend. A longtime friend of mine, I've known him since 1980, he joined the board of an organization called Youth for Tomorrow. I had no clue what Youth for Tomorrow was, right? It has the word youth in it. Great. I like youth organizations. Tomorrow means there's the vision. And it was founded by former Redskins coach Joe Gibbs. So that gives us credibility. And every year, Youth for Tomorrow would send me an invitation, which I'd throw away. I'd delete the emails, but every year my friend would pick up the phone and call me and go, "Nancy, it's Youth for Tomorrow ball time. Can I put you down for $200 for a raffle ticket?" And he would always say, "Nancy, I'm calling you from the airport. I've got to raise money. It's so important." And every year I would give $200 to an organization. I don't have a freaking clue what it does. But I have trusted my friend Richard since 1980. I was on a panel with another fundraiser who looked at me and said, "I give Richard $200 every year too, and I don't have a clue what Youth for Tomorrow does." So never underestimate that people are twice as likely to do something when they're asked by a friend. The first year my friend joined the board, he raised about $5,000. His final year on the board, he raised $60,000, and it's hard work. It actually means picking up the phone and having conversations. Second step, you've got to create a finance team. A finance committee is when you get your friends, neighbors, and colleagues to help agree to raise money for your campaign or organization by reaching out to their own, building that network of friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Yes, it's multi-level marketing at its finest. And when we are putting together this team, which we'll talk about in the next slide, what occupation makes the best finance chair? Somebody in sales. Not bankers. Bankers keep money in vaults. Sometimes people go ministers. No, ministers are funding their own projects. Not accountants. Accountants are bean counters and they keep me out of jail. But you need somebody who sells things to earn a living. My favorite, independent insurance agents or any insurance agents, stockbrokers, realtors. My favorite, car dealers or used car dealers. Cole, you can't give me $10,000 for that car. What about 9.5? People in sales know how to negotiate. They don't take no for an answer, and they're incredibly resilient. A 24-year-old yuppie insurance agent will make 100 cold calls a day, and if 3 people buy their product, they get out a bottle of champagne and celebrate. The more people you call, the more money you're going to raise. But remember, not everyone is going to say yes. But if you have somebody in sales who has that kind of resilience, heading up your team, you're going to raise more money. So how do I recruit a finance committee? Now, this is for a political campaign. I do a little bit different for nonprofit world, and you can look that up later in some of my books. So when I recruit a finance committee, I recruit 3 ways: occupation, region, interest area. I look for occupations. Who is your local home builder, the realtor, the car dealer, the banker? What are occupations in your town, in your community? Because people who are in these occupations bring me 2 things to the table: membership list. They know everybody else who's in the same business, and they have access to PAC money. Now, again, many of you have misconceptions about PAC money. Political Action Committee money, and there are nearly 6,000 federal PACs. It is the most heavily regulated money out there. It is not the same as super PACs or independent expenditures. We do not have the time to discuss that in this presentation, but I just want you to know the maximum amount a PAC can give in a federal race is $5,000 in the primary and $5,000 in the general. That's it. And the money that it comes from is heavily regulated. So most people, they can make a phone call, and good PAC fundraising starts at home. If you ever want to try to get money from the National Association of Realtors, which is the #1 PAC in the country, which most people don't know, but there's a realtor in every square inch of America. And everything that happens to their industry is controlled by Congress. So you need to know who your local realtor is, and that local realtor can open up those doors to help you get PAC money. So be thinking of occupations. Second, region. You know, if I'm doing a campaign in a city, I used to live in Arlington, Virginia, and Arlington has neighborhoods. We have Ballston, Clarendon, Courthouse. I would find somebody who knows a lot of people in that area, right? Because they know other people, building the network out. I have done areas where I have county chairs. In rural areas, I used to work in a lot in Nebraska, and the 3rd Congressional District has more than 70 counties. So I would cluster the counties, because a lot of those counties in Nebraska have more cows than people. So I might cluster 5 counties and find somebody who can work those 5 counties. So we're looking at regions. Finally, interest area. Most people who serve on the finance committee are doing it for personal connections, but there are some people who are only going to give to your campaign based on your belief in their issues. So here it's guns, homeschooling, abortion, the social issues. There are a lot of single issue voters, and if you can tap into them to be on your finance committee. They may not have a lot of money to give, but they know a lot of people because they feel so passionately about these issues. How many do you have on a finance committee? The more the merrier. I would rather have 25 people on a finance committee knowing that about 20 will reach the goals that I set than to only recruit 3 people and 1 person do it. A good finance committee can raise 60% or more of your overall budget. And I do give people goals. I ask them, let me go back. So I ask them, can you raise $10,000 between now and election day? So if it's 3 months away, it becomes $3,300 and change. And then I tell them, here's how you can do it. You and your spouse can each give $1,000 each. You can reach out to your political action committee, try to secure money there. You can ask 4 of your friends for $500 apiece, and you can have a house party in your home and raise $1,000. And the math changes, but I train my finance committee members how to raise money. And you'll find that in the companion book with this class on how to put together a finance committee and how to help them get the job done. Because you can't just tell somebody, hey, go raise some money for me and I'll see you in 6 months. I am very active with my finance committee because they're the ones who can, again, raise 60% of an overall campaign. So invest in them. Third, which we do not have time to go through, but again, there's a big section in the book. There are some people who will only give money to campaigns if there is a fundraising event to go to. And these are people who tend to be our medium-sized donors. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but they want some value for their donation. They want something to go to. Right now, people are doing Zoom parties. I love house parties where I find somebody who will host a party in their home, invite friends, neighbors, and colleagues to come. Your overhead is so much lower because the #1 reason events fail is out of control overhead. The second reason they fail is lack of organization. Ticket sellers sell tickets, not fancy invitations, not sexy guest speakers. It's hard work. You have to get on the phone and ask people to come. You can't just send out invitations and say they will come. So you have to sit down and write a plan. There's a saying, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Well, what's a plan look like? You'll find samples of that because again, we're doing speed fundraising today. But let's talk about this pyramid. This is the pyramid of fundraising nirvana. This is going to help you understand what motivates people to give money to nonprofits and to political campaigns. At the top of the pyramid are people who are only going to give money if they're personally asked. And I tend to find these are big donors. And I lovingly say big donors have big egos, right? They want to hear from you. Every community has Mr. or Ms. Big. These are like the king and queen of the community. You've got to go see them. There's a story of a guy in West Virginia that all a candidate had to do was schedule coffee and he would contribute to them. Well, of course, some candidate didn't think he had the time to do that, and he had a staffer call this man, and the man said, "You're not getting any money." So it's at the top of the pyramid because when you ask people for money directly via phone or in a meeting, it is the most cost-effective way to raise money. It is a use of your time, but not a lot of other resources. So it's at the top of the pyramid. In the middle of the pyramid, people who go to fundraising events. These are our mid-dollar donors. You have to decide what a mid-dollar donor is. It all depends on the area. And for this purpose, we'll go anybody who gives, we'll just say $25, because there's some people who will go to a barbecue for $25. They may go to a cocktail party for $100, or they may have a private cocktail party for $250. We love exclusivity. And so we make our fundraising events where it's an exclusive event no matter what you're giving. But in here, it's in the middle because I keep fundraising event overhead from 12 to 14%. The industry standard in nonprofit world is 40%, but in political world, we cut that to the bone. Because every dollar I spend on, cocktails and flower arrangements and balloons and all of that means it's fewer commercials I can buy. And for me, it's all about what can I do for voter outreach. In the bottom of the pyramid are those people who really respond to direct response. This is direct mail and telemarketing. There's a lot more of those donors, but they tend to be low dollar donors. Now, this is an expensive way to raise money. Direct mail and telemarketing can cost me 40 to 80 cents for every dollar I bring in. But these are people, they tend to be older donors. They don't want to go to a fundraising event anymore, and they may not have the money to be a major donor. But when you send them a piece of mail, 8 to 12% are going to give you money every time you ask them for money. It can create quite the revenue stream to your campaign as you build it up. Older people, they're the ones with landlines. It's easier to call them. Direct mail, these are people who still read every piece of letter or every piece of mail they come. My 94-and-a-half-year-old mother just got another piece of mail from the National Women's World War II Memorial. And of course, she was going to send more money because she was a nurse in World War II. So you're all asking, where's social media? Where's digital? Digital encompasses all of these factors. I draw a big circle around this pyramid. I use social media to have a special newsletter to communicate to my major donors. If I have a fundraising event, I'll create an evite, a Facebook invitation. I will email people reminders. And for direct mail and telemarketing, if I can find somebody's email address after I send a piece of mail, within 10 days, I'm sending an email going, "Did you keep my piece of mail?" Great. To make it even easier, you can click here to donate. In a typical campaign, only about 8% comes from digital media to fund your campaign. You are not Bernie Sanders. If you're running for county commissioner in a rural county, you're going to raise very little online. So don't think you are all going to be Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. It is a much different ballgame. What motivates these people to give? I look at big donors give because they want access. I'm not selling access, but they want that recognition. They expect to hear from you as a candidate or a key staffer or someone on the finance committee. They want to see you. If you have a fundraising dinner, they want to be there. So they like the fact that they're visible. Mid-dollar donors come because it's a social event. They want to see their friends. They want to be in the club, this exclusive club. These are people who want some value for their donation. My late father wouldn't give $25 to a candidate. I'd always have to say, and Dad would go, "What am I going to get?" And I go, "Well, Dad, you're going to get some tasty barbecued chicken." It's a social event. So that's why we have them. People want to be part of the crowd. Finally, these low dollar donors, these older donors, tend to be the most issue oriented donors. Older people, they're either watching Fox News or CNN, right? They're 20% here, 20% there. Always remember there's 60% of voters in the middle. But these are issue driven. They think the world, no matter if they're left or right, is going to hell in a handbasket. They're giving a few dollars because they want to make the world better for their children and grandchildren. This is when you collect those lists. You send a letter to gun owners or anti-gun, whatever, but these are people that tap into these issues. You can see these other things are much more relationship built. So what are some lessons learned from the pyramid? Give every potential donor, no matter how big or small, the opportunity to invest in your campaign. Conspicuous consumer consumption does not equal contributions. Just because somebody drives a Ferrari and lives in $1 million house doesn't mean they have more than $100 in their checking account. You don't know what's in their heart. So it is always interesting when I read a story of somebody who passes away and leaves $3 million to the local library in rural Iowa, because this person learned to read and cherish the local libraries. So don't be looking at conspicuous consumption. The little old lady that sends you $1 in a piece of direct mail is going to be the first one to vote for you on election day because she's got skin game. Many years ago, I did the lieutenant governor's race in Nebraska, and I'll never forget, I was down in Beatrice, Nebraska, and here comes this little old lady with a crisp $5 bill. You knew she had just gone to the bank and gotten it. She toddles in, and she said, I'm donating $5 because David used to shovel my snow when he was a little boy. Guess what? She's told that story to everybody. Personal connections. She's going to be there to vote. What makes democracy great? The little old lady and Mr. Big each have one vote on election day. Never forget that. It is the great equalizer in American politics. Finally, remember the BOY strategy. It's all about the donor. BOY stands for because of you. When I write direct mail copy to raise money, or when I'm talking to someone, I'll look at a donor and go, because of you, we can accomplish these things. It's not just me. Get rid of the I. It's not about you as the candidate. And I know it's hard for candidates because it's always about them. This is all about the donor. And when people give money, they feel better. It's all about the donor investing in his or her future and keying in. If that person's talking about education, you need to talk about education. Pop quiz. Hyatt Regency heiress Penny Pritzker served as Barack Obama's national finance chair in 2008. Why did she agree to take on this role? Hint, all fundraising is still personal. Now, we don't have the beauty of a live class, so we'll just cut to the chase. When my friend Juliana Schmoot flew in to meet with this guy named Barack Obama, who had just been a state senator and been elected to the US Senate. And because he's a guy, he woke up one day and said, I'd like to be president. Because remember, men do that, women don't. So she goes in to meet with Barack Obama. And she said, just like I would do with anybody, tell me, who do you know? And Michelle Obama said, we know Penny Pritzker. Well, Juliana kind of rolled her eyes and went, well, you know, Penny Pritzker will write a check, but she had never stepped up to do more. And Michelle Obama said, no, we really know her. And here's the story. Michelle Obama's brother, Craig Robinson, is a basketball coach. Most recently, he was the coach, either the Beavers or the Ducks out in Oregon. I always get them confused. But some team in Oregon that has an animal as a mascot. Just go with it, Google it. So, but before he went out to Oregon, he used to coach Penny Pritzker's two sons in junior high basketball. So for years, the Obamas and the Pritzkers hung out in gymnasiums all around Chicago and got to know each other. So when Michelle and Barack Obama asked Penny Pritzker to serve as the national finance chair, she said yes. She raised $16 million from people in her Rolodex. And what people forget, she was the first major Democratic woman who said, hey, let's look at this Barack Obama and not Hillary Clinton as a candidate. It was a game changer. And yes, I know she ended up being Commerce Secretary, but that was a long ways from hanging out in gymnasiums and believing in Barack Obama. All fundraising is still personal. Storytelling is the fiber of relationship building. Jerry Panis was known as the he was known as the top nonprofit fundraiser in the world. He just passed away within the last year or so. I had the pleasure of taking advanced fundraising lessons from him many years ago. And I remember of all the things I learned, it's all about the story. Everybody has a story. And the more I can know about the donor's story, the better chance I'm going to have from raising money, because I'm looking at people's hearts. So we're going to talk about how do we make that ask? Why do I tell people a story, as I've been doing in this presentation? Research shows listeners will remember 65 to 70% of information shared through a story. But only 5 to 10% of listeners will remember information conveyed by facts and figures. You want to be memorable, and you want to remember other people. It's critical to that long-term eHarmony strategy of fundraising. So let's get to the final thing we're going to cover today, and that is making the ask. So, making the ask. Studies show we have less than 21 seconds to make a first impression with someone, which means you need to walk in with your head held high, making eye contact. We used to say have a firm handshake, so now you kind of go with whatever's going to work, whether it's the fist bump or whatever. But you have to be glad to be there. So when you walk into a room, you have to walk in like you're an Olympic star and you own the place. So this leads us to Dale Carnegie and Uno the Beagle. Now, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has been on the bestseller list of the New York Times forever. It still is. Now, Dale Carnegie was born in 1912. He wrote his latest book a few years ago on how to win friends and influence others, influence people in the digital age. That's how powerful Dale Carnegie is. He's dead. But of all the advice Dale Carnegie has given, because I get his newsletter, my favorite piece is this. Dale Carnegie used to advise his pupils to greet every stranger with the enthusiasm of a puppy dog. Now, I'm not advocating that you start licking the faces of potential donors, but if I had a black lab puppy, I'd be raising more money. Now, what's this have to do with Uno the Beagle? Many years ago, Uno the Beagle was the first beagle to ever make the finals of the Westminster Dog Show. So here comes Uno the Beagle. Arf, 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 I'm Uno the Beagle. I'm a good-looking stud of a dog. I'm going to beat these Shih Tzus and these poodles because I am Uno. And I'll never forget watching this. When Uno came out, barking and being glad to be there, every human being at the Westminster Dog Show stood up and gave a dog a standing ovation. If you Google it, it's phenomenal. And I remember thinking, wow, I knew that Dale Carnegie book was in a lot of languages, but I did not know that dogs also read his books. Be glad to be there. Because most people go in and go, hi, Cole, I'm really sorry to bother you today. My name is Nancy, and well, I'm going to run for Congress. And well, if you want to, you could give me some money, but you don't have to. I know the church needs new hymnals, and well, if you don't want to, it's okay. And then I go away and I go under my desk in a fetal position. This is how most people ask for money. No eye contact. They apologize. Nobody wants to give money to loser girl. Don't look like a loser. You have to go in there and capture people's hearts. Because this is why we don't send cats to be fundraisers. Because cats look like this. Okay, people who suffer from RBF, resting bitch face, sorry, they're like the worst fundraisers, right? I have a staffer who would look like this in meetings, and the whole time me as the extrovert would go, I wonder what she's thinking. Why don't I have any, and of course, when she thinks and looks like this. This is not how you ask for money, because no one's going to give you money if you look like a cat. Be Uno the Beagle and be glad to be there. So how do we put together the ask? When I work with candidates, we prepare a script. I have a 30 elevator pitch, a 2-minute, and a 5-minute. Because every day that you're running for office, somebody's going to go, why are you doing this? How are you going to win? And who's going to vote for you? I want to make sure we have precise but heartfelt answers to those questions. So when we prepare a script, I use 4 things. First, warm greeting. Be glad to be there. Second, small talk. Make that personal connection. So this is where our fellow Aggies come in play. When Rick Perry ran for president, both of those nanoseconds, I knew back in 2011 when he was running, he would outraise Mitt Romney, and he did. He raised $16 million in 1 quarter. So some reporter from like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, called somebody named Bubba down in Texas. Bubba, I see you gave $5,000 to Rick Perry. Well, Bubba starts going off and goes, I hate Republicans. They're the scum of the earth. They hate poor people. They're horrible, horrible people. And so the reporter's a little confused, but aren't you the Bubba that gave $5,000 to Rick Perry? And Bubba said, damn straight I did. He's an Aggie and my frat brother. Never underestimate friendship trumps party. Because when we talked about those older donors, you're always going to have 20% of voters that are watching Fox and Rush Limbaugh. You're going to have the other 20 that are CNN and Rachel Maddow. But you've got people in the middle. They're going to give to you because they believe in you. Remember, the personal trust asset. I once set up a campaign where I had golf pros. My candidate was the amateur golf champion of Nebraska. And we had to figure out, how do I build that coalition and meet people throughout the state? So I had him call all the golf pros in the state. Now, first of all, we had to get him to register to vote. But once we got him out to these rural cities, he would be picked up by the golf pro, and the golf pro would go, well, I know the banker, the doctor, the hardware store owner. The guy knew everybody in town. You never know what that passion, what that connection is going to be. So have that small talk. Make that connection. Have a sales pitch, why they need to give, why you're running, how you're going to win, who's going to vote for you. If you can't answer those questions, you're in trouble. I've seen too many people, why are you running for office? And there's that deer in the headlight look. I am running for office because the dog died last year. The kids are in college. I haven't spoken to my husband in years. Wait, I want to give something back to my community. Okay, you got to work on it. You need to grab people's hearts. Finally, you need to close the deal. You need to ask for a specific amount. Your own mother is not going to give you money unless you ask her for a specific amount. And I always tie it with something I need. Your $100 contribution today will enable me to buy 3 radio spots, monetize everything. Aim high. I'd rather ask for $1,000 and walk out with $250 than ask somebody for $5 in a direct mail piece or in an email. I negotiate. Can't give me $1,000, what about $750? But ultimately, I always walk out with something because I've done my research and I know this person wants to give because I've captured their hearts. Now we just have to figure out what's the amount. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, except on speed fundraising today. Listen twice as much as you speak. I've had too many candidates where abortion, one way or another, is their only topic. Please don't be tunnel-minded. You need to listen to that restaurant owner. You need to listen to people on what their issues are. It's not about you. Remember, it's all about them. Replace cold calling with warm communication. Your ability to make personal, emotional connections with potential donors can move them from concern to passion to cash. Meet Saeed. Saeed lives in Istanbul, Turkey. And I can't believe many years ago, I was in Istanbul training women from Morocco, Algeria, and Jordan who were going to run for parliament. And I had 1 free day because the rest of the time, these are people who had never had 7th grade student council elections. So I'm teaching messaging and organization. But I had 1 day, I go to the Sultan's Palace in Istanbul, and the place is huge. There are really long lines, and everything is in Turkish and Arabic. So I go out and there's this fine looking young man holding a sign that says, I speak English. So I go up and negotiate. And for $30, he's going to spend the afternoon with me. And I thought I got a really great deal, right? I felt like a cougar that day on this nice young man. So Saeed's great. We walk in and the first thing he says, Miss Nancy, what do you do for a living? Well, I've worked for many, many members of Congress, but my real passion is helping women achieve success in public service. Miss Nancy, I work for a member of parliament here in Istanbul. I just do this to earn extra money. Immediately, 1 degree of separation. Saeed's great. He cuts me in the front of all the lines. So I can see the second largest diamond in the world and the swords encrusted with emeralds. And he's telling me all the history because I love knowledge. And he keeps doing this. And so it's wonderful because I am a type A personality. TSA is my friend. Do not make me wait in a line. Okay. He's cut me in front of the lines. It's wonderful. Then he goes, Miss Nancy, do you need some water? Well, yes, but I like cold water, no bubbles. So he goes and finds me cold water. He finds me a Western style bathroom. And about halfway through, he goes, Miss Nancy, have you bought a rug since you've been in Istanbul? And I go, yeah, I don't need a rug. I got cats. At the time I had pet rabbits. Yeah, I don't need a rug. But we keep looking at things. And finally he says, Miss Nancy, is there anything we haven't seen? I said, well, I thought there was to be an exhibit of the Sultan's clothing because I like to do arts and crafts. It is closed today, but let me see what I can do. Next thing I know, here comes a guard. He opens up this exhibit just for me. And so I see the beautiful gowns encrusted with diamonds and all this lovely, wonderful stuff. And I went, oh, what a great day. Well, then he goes, Miss Nancy, my uncle has the finest rug store in Istanbul. He will be very upset with me if I don't show you his store. So we know where this is going. We both work for elected officials. He finds me water, a bathroom. He cuts in front of a line. Okay, I will go look, but I'm not buying anything. We go down the street. It's a 5-story rug store. Okay, I don't have time for 5 stories. No, Miss Nancy, we have a beautiful showroom on the 2nd floor. I walk in. I'm greeted by 10 men. The uncle looks at me and goes, Miss Nancy, welcome to my store. Obviously, more texting was going on. So the uncle and I walk up the steps, and he looks at me and goes, Miss Nancy, tell me, from what country do you come? Now, as I reflected on this, I'm Hungarian. My father was Hungarian. I look like I just got off the boat at Ellis Island yesterday. I could not look more Eastern European. Now, if I would have said I am Hungarian, I'm sure he would have said, Budapest, such beautiful twin cities. But I said, I am from the United States. Miss Nancy, I love America. I have lived in Charleston and New Orleans, such beautiful cities. And my brother has a rug store in Seattle. You should go see him. Immediately, we have something in common. We love America. So I go sit on the giant couch. Here comes the baklava and the tea, and men start spinning rugs. Here are the cotton rugs. Here are the wool rugs. Rugs, rugs, rugs. He says, Miss Nancy, what brings you here? Well, I'm here to train these women. He says, is that what you do? And I said, yes, I travel around the world helping women achieve success in public service. So he talks about all the countries. And then he says, Miss Nancy, have you ever seen a rug being made? And I went, well, yeah, I've been to Turkey, and well, Mom and I on her 80th birthday went to Egypt. And there we went to something called a vocational ed center. Yeah, it would be child labor, a 9-year-old making a rug, but we didn't go into that. Bad rugs in Egypt. We have the most beautiful rugs in the world. Yeah, I don't need a rug. I'm only here because of your nephew. And the guy keeps showing me rugs. And Miss Nancy, I've not sold any rugs today. If you buy one, we'll each have good luck. Yeah. I said, yeah, I just don't need a rug. And I said, listen, you keep showing me all these rugs and they're blue and green and my house is pink. And just like magic, here comes a pink rug. Miss Nancy, I see that your eyes are twinkling. I see this rug. It speaks to you. You have exquisite taste. This rug is not just silk. It is double silk. The back is as beautiful as the front. Yeah, it's a lovely rug. I don't need a rug. I mean, I'm in there like 90 minutes and we keep talking. So he then says, because he listened twice as much as he spoke, Miss Nancy, it took a woman 8 months to make this rug, and she's a widow with many children. Did he reach open and crack my chest open and hold my heart in his hands? My passion is helping women. So then I go into suspended disbelief. So tell me, how much do you want for the rug? And he said $1,200. And I didn't just come out of the Cabbage Patch. I said, no, that is too much. What about $500? Oh, Miss Nancy, the back is as beautiful as the front. What about $800? And finally, we agreed on $600. This, my friend, is what a $600 rug. This is Katerina and her $600 rug. Yes, You can see it. In fact, I brought it here. We'll put it up in the screen so you can see that the back is as beautiful as the front. Now, I know there's a lot of questions here. Nancy, did you see the rug before you bought it? Yes, I saw the frickin' placemat size rug. Nancy, is there a big rug at home and this is the sample? No, I bought a frickin' placemat size rug. Nancy, did you wash the rug and it shrank? No, I bought a frickin' placemat size rug. We go downstairs and I do all the paperwork for the rug. I want you to know that every year since 2007, I have received a Christmas card from the Muslim carpet dealer. Now you're wondering, Nancy, what does a Muslim Christmas card look like? It is Santa on a camel. I kid you not, every time I'm in Jordan or Egypt or elsewhere in the Middle East, around the holidays, every hotel has a stuffed camel with a Santa. And every year, Miss Nancy, thank you for buying the double pink silk rug. That's what you call gratitude. That's what you call thanking people. So, story's not quite over. I come back to the US and I'm reflecting on, I can't believe I just bought a $600 rug. My phone rings a year later. Miss Nancy, yes, this is Saeed. Who? Saeed. I was your tour guide at the Sultan's Palace. I am in America and I would like to come and see you. I brought some rugs. And I started laughing. I said, you know what? I have always been a good fundraiser. There was a Senate race many years ago. I raised $6.8 million. I've raised millions of dollars. But that was the day I learned how to be an extraordinary fundraiser. Because you listen twice as much as you speak. And I said, you know, Saeed, I wish I was going to be in town because I tell this story of your uncle sometimes 3 times a week because that changed the way I looked at fundraising. Because remember this, oh, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Look what I found when I was moving to Texas. On April 16th, 2007, I spent $600 US on this pure silk rug. And by the way, I had no idea. It's supposed to be used as under the telephone. I thought it was a mini prayer rug. I had no idea. But I can't wait to go back to Istanbul and go see them sometime because that story was worth more than $600. I got an email at Bocskor@AOL.com, which I haven't used in a long time, and it was from Saeed. He's now started his own tour business in Istanbul, and I reminded him, this is what great salesmen do. This is how you develop relationships. Be memorable. Your heart is closer to your wallet than your head, and almost every fundraising decision is one of the heart. Listen, learn, help, lead. I learned that mantra from Newt Gingrich many years ago. You listen appreciatively to people. You ask questions. You learn. You take what you've heard and you digest it. What can you do to process it? You listen, you learn. How can you help people? In fundraising, it's, I understand your concerns about education. If I'm elected, I can do these things. You listen, learn, help, and you almost always be asked to lead people because people vote for people who get things done. Finally, say thank you. It's the #1 reason donors stop giving. Handwritten thank you notes. I worked on Bob Dole's campaign back in 1987 and 88, and I was in Iowa and Nebraska. And I can't tell you the number of people I called that said, I'm supporting Vice President Bush because I have a handwritten thank you from him. You know, I learned from the greatest. Vice President Bush always penned notes. People, the studies show people don't throw away thank you notes. When I moved to Texas, it was killing me. I had to throw away years and decades of notes people had written me. For more information, here's my email. There's my website. It needs to be updated. And I just want to show you, that's my dad and me in front of the White House. I was 3 years old. You could actually walk in front of the White House. It was the first time I went to DC and fell in love. And there's my father with a 9th grade education. Yet he's wearing a tie to the White House as a tourist because only in America can your dreams come true. No matter how many problems we have, and we certainly have many, but we have the opportunity in a democracy to have the freedom to run for office. So thank you for coming to Campaign Bootcamp. We want to help you find we want to find you a job on a campaign, because you can really change your community and change the world. So thanks so much. Look forward to hearing from you.